It was late, way too late to be out on Route 66. My friends and I had been driving for hours, making our way through the desert when we saw her. She was standing at the side of the road right where the old gas station used to be. At first, we thought she was just another hitchhiker. But then I noticed something off. She looked like she had been there for years. Her clothes were dusty, her skin almost translucent, like she hadn't seen sunlight in decades. The strangest part, no car in sight for miles, and yet she was just waiting. We slowed down, and instinctively we asked her if she needed help. She nodded but didn't speak a word. Then she gave me a look that made my blood run cold. It was as if her eyes were seeing something far beyond the road, far beyond us. "Take me to the end of the road," she whispered, pointing toward an old, abandoned motel up ahead. But her voice, it didn't sound human. It was faint, like a distant echo that belonged to no one in particular. As we drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the strange woman. It was the way the air seemed to change around us. The temperature dropped. The wind howled louder than before, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally across the road. It was almost like time itself was slowing down. We reached the motel, this rundown place, long abandoned. I pulled into the gravel lot, the tires crunching under the weight of the silence. I turned to the back seat to ask if she wanted to get out, but when I looked, she was gone. Just like that. No sound, no movement, no goodbye. Vanished into thin air. I stopped the car in the middle of the lot and looked around in complete disbelief. My friends, they were just as freaked out as I was, but none of us could explain what had just happened. We looked everywhere for her. Behind the motel in the desert scrub. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of anyone. Just an empty lot and the relentless desert wind. I wanted to leave, but something held us there. It was like we had been marked. Maybe it was the way she had looked at me, or the strange sensation that we weren't alone. That night, when we finally left, we couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us. We saw shadows moving just outside our headlights, but when we stopped to look, there was nothing, and we never spoke of it again. But every time I pass by that stretch of Route 66, I wonder, was she real? Or was she just a ghost, waiting for the next car to pass by to take her to the afterlife? It was the summer of 1967. My grandparents had just finished visiting some relatives in Ohio, and they were driving back home when they saw her. She was standing there by the side of the road in a long, flowing white dress, her hair blowing wildly despite the stillness of the night. My grandparents thought she was just another lost soul, stranded and waiting for a ride. My grandfather slowed down and pulled over. They asked if she needed help, and she gave them a small, almost imperceptible nod. She didn't say a word, but she gestured for them to follow the road ahead. The directions were clear, but the house she described was unfamiliar. Still, my grandparents didn't think twice. They were just trying to be kind. They let her in. The drive was quiet. Too quiet. My grandparents said she didn't speak once during the ride. The only sound in the car was the hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the old wooden seats. But there was something unsettling about the whole situation. The closer they got to the house she had described, the more the air seemed to change. It became thick, suffocating, like the world itself had slowed down. When they finally arrived, the house was exactly as she had described. But there was something wrong, so wrong that they couldn't put it into words. No lights, no sounds. The house sat like a ghost, completely still. My grandfather turned to the back seat, intending to ask her where she'd gone. But she was gone. Vanished without a trace. Not even a footprint left behind in the dust. In a panic, they started asking the neighbors, but no one recognized the woman. Not only that, but no one even knew about the house she had mentioned. It wasn't even on the map. It was as though the woman had pointed them to a place that didn't exist. My grandparents tried to rationalize it, but deep down, they knew what they had seen wasn't something ordinary. It was the same woman many other travelers had reported seeing along US Route 35. A hitchhiker in a white dress who disappears once she reaches her destination. I don't know what happened that night, but my grandparents never spoke about it again. I think they were too afraid of what they might have encountered. All I know is that when you drive through that stretch of Route 35, there's something in the air, something that's not quite right. And if you see a woman in white, just know, she won't be there when you look away. I was driving late one night on Highway 285, heading back home after a long, exhausting day. The road was deserted, the kind of empty highway that feels like it goes on forever. But then I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A truck just behind me, tailgating me relentlessly. I wasn't in the mood for games. I was already tired, and this truck was driving me crazy. It wasn't just following me. It was like it was trying to push me off the road. The high beams were blinding, and I could feel the pressure building as the truck stayed too close. Then I looked in the mirror one more time, and the truck, it was gone. Vanished. Just like that. I couldn't believe it. There was no turnoff, no place for it to disappear. It was like it never existed. But that wasn't the last time I encountered it. Weeks later, I heard stories from locals about a phantom truck that haunts this very stretch of Highway 285. Drivers who were followed, tailgated relentlessly, only to have the truck disappear when they reached a certain speed. Some of them said the truck had no license plate, no markings, nothing. Just a faceless truck appearing out of nowhere, chasing you down until you can outrun it. I don't know if it's a ghost or something worse. But after that night, I avoid Highway 285 after dark. Some things on the road don't belong there, and they're waiting for someone just like me to pass by, to make their move. So next time you find yourself driving down an empty stretch of road, ask yourself this: what's waiting out there, and are you ready to meet it?